I don't know if you guys saw the eclipse today. I'm in my house and I'm looking out the window, like the shadows of the trees to see the eclipse on the ground, but it got so cloudy. And I'm like, where is the eclipse? And I was looking online and like the online stuff was taking forever to buffer. And I'm just like, okay. Hello, my name is Sydney and today I'm here to talk about reading slumps. Now, if you don't know what a reading slump is, that is basically just when you kind of wish you could read, but you kind of lose the desire to. Anytime you might try to pick up a book, you just can't get into it. You just can't get yourself to read. These can last like a few days, or they could last like a whole year and then some, like mine did. So that was fun. My reading slump began after I read A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J. Maas. I've talked about this on the channel before, but basically I love that book so much that I didn't think anything I read after it could compare. I thought I was getting out of my slump with the booktubeathon that just happened at the end of July, but for reasons I will talk about later in the video, not quite as out of the reading slump as I thought it was. If you watch a lot of booktube, you might hear people talk about being in reading slumps, wanting to get out of reading slumps. There's always that negative connotation surrounding it, like I don't want to be in a reading slump, reading slumps are the worst, you know, just And I just want to talk a little bit about why reading slumps might not be the worst thing in the world. Let's be real, sometimes reading slumps just suck, but other times there might be a good reason. So first off, consider why you're in a reading slump. Was it because the last book you read was just so good that nothing else can compare, like it was in my case? Is there something going on in your personal life that maybe just requires more of your attention right now? Are you reading the type of book that you actually want to read, or are you forcing yourself to read something that you're not that interested in right now? Are you putting pressure on yourself to try to keep up with other readers? You know, you see a lot of people talk about how they read 20 books that month, or that's kind of some big numbers to try to live up to. But also, it could just be your mind's way of telling you that it needs a break from reading, because even if you love reading, sometimes you just need a break. It can be good to step back sometimes and give yourself a moment to breathe, a moment to kind of gain a new perspective on something. You know, you can really learn to appreciate certain hobbies that you have if you take a moment to step back from it. Now, this is not always the answer, but sometimes, you know. And while sometimes finding the right book to read could be the answer to getting out of a reading slump, consider other ways to maybe help yourself. Find other creative outlets. So I love to write, but I didn't want to spend all of my creative energy writing, because I didn't want to burn myself out on it. I wanted to have another creative outlet so I could feel just more diversely creative. It's like how people say that really rich people have multiple streams of income, right? It might help in the same case with creative people to have multiple streams of creativity. I started a YouTube channel, and it's very, very different from writing, but I also just still feel really good about having done it. So I'm not just like putting all the pressure on one creative outlet to be my creative outlet. And so you could find like that activity that's good for you. If you like photography, if you like painting, if you like, even if you like to play sports or things like that, even those, they may not seem creative, but I think that they can be very creative, and they can help satisfy you in very similar ways. Make you feel productive, make you feel good about yourself. While you're in this slump, maybe just allow yourself to take a break. Instead of looking at this slump like the end of the world, look at it like an opportunity. Now you get to take a moment to try other activities, you know, especially if there's maybe that one thing that you've always wanted to try. Now's the opportunity to do it. But sometimes reading is the answer to get out of a reading slump. So one thing I would say is, do not put pressure on yourself to try to keep up with other readers. It's not worth it. It doesn't really make any sense, because everybody's different. Everybody has different tastes. Everybody has different reading speeds. Everybody has different schedules of the day. So just because somebody's reading books, like several books a week or a month, doesn't mean that you need to read that many books. You can still enjoy reading without putting pressure on yourself. So like I had the booktubeathon. Everybody in the book community is rallying around this event, you know. We're all excited to try to read 7 books in a week, which is really motivating when you have a community of people who are all trying to do the same thing as you. For the week of the booktubeathon and the week after, I read, I think, about 6 books. While that was great then, and I thought I was out of my reading slump, it turns out that as soon as I finished that 6th book, I kind of fell back into it. The booktubeathon was great while it lasted, but then it ended. So while things like readathons and marathons can be really helpful, they might be temporary solutions. But at the same time, they could be the kick that you need to get back into it. Try to experiment with a new genre or a new type of book. If you're always reading from the same genre, like you're always reading YA books, try to read outside of that, because there's a whole world out there of literature that is just as amazing, and it gives you a better perspective on the world, because it's always good to have a wider perspective on things, and especially on the world, you know. Art imitates life, so, or is it life imitates art? Whatever. I think art also imitates life. So, you know, books are, you know, they'll teach you a lot about the world, about who you are as a person, about who the people are around you, that you can't always get from just one genre. Read other things, especially if you're a writer. There's always that advice to read widely and to read deeply, and you can't do that just in one genre. You can read deeply in one genre, but you can't read widely and expect to gain all the things that you need to know, like as a writer or even as a reader. You could be missing out on a lot of really quality books by only sticking to one genre. Read something that's easy, like a graphic novel or a comic book, or just a really short book, just to kind of help yourself feel like you're being more productive because you're getting through a book quicker. You're not just reading lines and lines of prose. Now you have pictures woven into the mix. It's almost like dipping your toes in the water, you know. You're not going straight into like a 1,000-page book. You're starting really easy with like short books and comic books and really fun books or really fast reads. Ask other readers for recommendations. There are videos out there about, here are some great books to get out of a reading slump. That could even just help you kind of figure out what to do. But sometimes a slump could keep going on. I think this was the case for me. I do well with habits. Before my reading slump, I read, I think, 30 books during the school year between like January and April. From wanting to read, it became a habit where when I had a moment of free time, before I even thought about going on YouTube or watching TV or doing this other thing, I thought about reading. During the reading slump, I fell out of that routine. And so it could just be that if your reading slump is still going on, you might have to like get back into that habit. And like I talked about in a previous writing vlog video, sometimes you have to force yourself to do something you love for like the first day or two until you start to get into it. And you might find that the habit will form itself without you even trying. You can just listen to people talking about why they love reading. This is BookTube. There are people who love reading all over the place. But if you can find like specific moments or specific videos where people just talk about why they love reading or how reading has changed their life, that can be really infectious. That love, that passion for reading, that spirit. If you see somebody else who feels right now the way that you used to feel about reading before your slump, that can help reignite that fire in you. In conclusion, reading should be fun. If you start to treat it too much like a job, that might just push you towards burning out quicker or losing your love of reading. And while that might not be the case for everybody, because some people do really well with like treating things like a job, like taking it very seriously, having like a consistent schedule, consistent productivity, that works for some people, but it doesn't work for everybody. And so if you start treating it like a job, you know, things could start to go downhill fast. And also, I mentioned this earlier, but I think it's a really important point. Try not to compare yourself to other readers. Don't put pressure on yourself to try to keep up with other readers. You don't have to read every single hyped book. There will be other hyped books that you'll be interested in. And there will be a bunch of other books that aren't hyped that maybe nobody ever talks about that could become your favorite books, you know? And so don't put pressure to keep up with everybody else. Like, if you're all reading the same reading taste, then what is it really worth? The fact that we can discover new books on our own, sometimes that feels really good. Like, do you ever just kind of discover a book on your own that you've never heard anybody talk about, but it becomes like such an endearing book to you? You're not going to have a whole lot of those moments if you're always reading recommendations. And sometimes it's good to just step outside of your comfort zone. Thank you guys so much for watching. Down below, if you have any advice on getting out of reading slumps or just on reading slumps in general, I'd like to hear it. As I'm sure other people would as well. If you are in a reading slump, I wish you the best of luck in getting out of it. I hope something that I said can really help you. I mainly made this video to help myself. So give this video a like, hit subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Toodaloo!
Oh my queen, we are here again with your lonely eyes and your rusty skin.